Okay.
Good morning, everyone. At this time, I'll call the Crow County Committee of the Whole meeting to order for April 15th, 2025, and welcome Kara Griffin.
Hey, good morning.
Oh, okay, roll.
Microphone's not on.
You're right, Paul, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I didn't do roll call and my microphone wasn't on, so let's reset.
Ready to go.
Let's try it again.
Commissioner Coring,
I'm here.
Commissioner Lubke,
Here.
Commissioner Barrows,
Here.
Commissioner Franzine,
Here.
Commissioner Lee,
Here.
all members are present.
Okay, Kara?
Microphone's not on.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. I'm Cara Griffin, the Division Manager for the Family and Children's team. Can you hear me okay? Okay, excellent. So in the packet is the 2024 annual report. I did bring paper copies if that's what you would prefer. I'm just going to highlight a few key takeaways from 2024 and then provide some updates for 2025 or things that you should have on your radar as we move into the year. I will welcome any questions or comments that you have regarding the report today. So we'll start with the Family Income Maintenance Programs, also known as Public Assistance. That's supervised by Sarah McCusick. In 2024, the IMU family team drastically changed the way the work was being done, so they reorganized the team. This did result in improved customer service and job satisfaction. So prior to rearranging the duties, the team was averaging about 4 weeks out in processing. So that means they were not getting to applications or paperwork until 4 weeks after we received that. Since they reorganized the work, they're averaging about 2 weeks out in processing. So split that time in half. Our child care assistance, which that's really important for us to get to make sure that our families are eligible and providers are getting paid, is just 1 week out in processing. So we've experienced an improvement in our...
Kara? Commissioner Coring?
Commissioner Coring, sorry.
Cara, can you just drill down in that a little more? I guess I don't understand. What changed from taking it from 4 weeks to 2 weeks? I mean, what kind of process have you done? That's a 100% change. What are you doing different?
Yeah. So the team went to how they had the work divided up. So you'll see on the org chart on the first page, there is 10 financial workers and 1 case aide that reports to Sarah McCusick, so under that team. What they went to was they have a core group of folks that are doing intake. That's their specialty. So they're focused on intake. They're seeing all the folks that come in, they're entering those applications, they're completing the interviews, and then the rest of the team is focused on processing. So they're not meeting with the folks. They still do a rotation of phone duties, maybe taking walk-ins if the numbers are high, but they went from more of a centralized intake to processing. And while that might not be as favorable if you're thinking from a financial worker perspective, when maybe if you're designated as an intake worker, you're seeing a lot of people, you're in the office primarily from 8 to 4:30, Monday through Friday. The team was all in on reorganizing the work because they knew it would be in the best interest of the people that we're serving, as well as provide them relief with the number of phone calls they're receiving and that backlog. So essentially, they looked at just a change in how they're doing the work and really became more client-focused.
Wow, that's amazing that you could change it like it's like 100%. I mean, go from 4 weeks to 2 weeks. That's just in changing that around. It's, I hope you continue to look for efficiencies like that.
And we had, there was years ago when we went through the reorganization timeline, probably would have, it seems to me like just 3 years ago, but I think it was 12 years when we went through a big reorganization, and that's how we had the work set up. We had intake and processing. So we knew that there was a benefit in doing that. So we somewhat went back and went back to how things were being done 12 years ago when we first went through a reorganization. So. Of course, as we get ahead of the work, then people aren't calling as much because their applications are being processed, whether they're accepted or denied the application. So of course, then naturally, we have a decrease in walk-ins as well as phone calls, wondering where we're at with paperwork. So the team will continue to really be focused on the reorganization and looking for efficiencies. We, as well as going through those changes, our SNAP and cash assistance, of course, we have timelines that are developed by DCYF, that's the Department of Children's, Youth, and Family Services, formerly known as DHS. They have a timeline set at 90%. We averaged 91% of timeliness in 2024, so we exceeded the state average. We also exceeded the state average for timeliness for SNAP expedite, so those individuals that, because they are out of food or they have a lower income to expense ratio, we are expected to process those applications within 5 days, not the 30 days, and we exceeded the state. The state has us set at within 24 hours or 7 days at 80%. We were at 89%. And then for a healthcare, the state wants us at 95%, and we were at 100% of timeliness for processing our healthcare applications. Something to have on your radar as we come into 2024. Currently, we have a contract every 2 years. We contract with Career Force Center to provide our employment services. So those individuals that participate in our MFIP cash program, they are expected to comply with employment services. So seeking employment, maybe getting on-the-job training. We've contracted with Career Force Center, also known as Rural Minnesota SEP, for a number of years here in Crow Wing County. Last year, we had a vendor that reached out to us and mentioned that they're interested in expanding to Crow Wing County. So this year, when we seek the contract for this professional service, we will, of course, welcome a bid from Career Force Center or Rural Minnesota SEP, as well as this other vendor, and then the contract would come before you. So we expect to open that up in July, seeking bids, and then review those proposals and bring a recommendation to the board to approve. And that'll be around October or November, so quite a few months out, but something to have on your radar. For child support, that would be page, I think I'm now at page 4 of the annual report. Child support is supervised by Karen Holt. Just of interest for this team, I found this, experience is really important in any programs when it comes to county government. And we've had 14 staff in that team, and they have over 197 years of a combined county experience. So Karen, for example, she's been with us, I believe, around 10 years, and prior to that, she worked for a number of years in another county. So amongst the 14 staff, 197 years. And because of that, years of experience, many of them do participate in state and regional work groups, which helps us to influence at the state level how the work is being performed and the expectations around the child support, and of course, influencing the system across the state. So Crow Wing County, we continue to exceed the state and regional performance. For example, for paternity statewide, the average is 96%, or paternity established. Our orders are at 102%. As long as I've worked in the child support area, I've always questioned, how can you exceed 100%? But we do. So 102%. Our region is at 101. For orders being established in a timely manner, we're at 94%, which exceeds the state is 86 and regionally 91. And then current collections, so the amount of percentage of what is owed on all the orders versus how much is coming in and being paid on a monthly basis. Our goal is to be at 75%, so we didn't meet our our local goal. We came in at 74.69, so just below it. We're going to hit it this year. Statewide, though, is only at 73% and regionally 74%. And then arrears collection, so collection on balances that are owed that have not been current, but have been owed from past months, we're at 72%, statewide is 69%, and regionally is 68%. It's important to call out those regional numbers because some of the socioeconomic factors that we might be dealing with for unemployment or poverty, that those are the numbers that we watch closely because our neighboring counties in our region should have some of those similar demographics.
Carl, what counties are in the region? Is it the 5 counties?
Yes, it would be
Okay.
the Todd, Morrison, Aiken, Cass, Wadena.
So Aiken isn't in it?
Not for Region 5,
Right.
for like Sourcewell, but for who we compare ourselves for child support, they would be.
They would
our
be,
bordering
okay.
counties. Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah. Moving on to social services, that would be on page 6 and 7 of the annual report. So our reports, investigations, and assessments continue to be steady over the past 3 years. So we average around 1,600 child protection reports that come in on an annual basis. Something to be aware of here in this area is that the state is reviewing a centralized intake and screening process. So it'd be similar to adult protection, which is called the MARC system. About 10 years ago, that was implemented. The state has been looking at that. That was part of the governor's task force from, I believe it was 2017. It was one of the recommendations to look at that. While that would provide consistency across the state, locally, our feedback, and I've participated in work groups, staff have, stakeholders, law enforcement, we've invited our community partners to participate in those work groups to provide feedback as well. While that would provide consistency and there's just one phone number or one online form to complete, our perspective and opinion on it is that it would cause, there's more cons to a centralized screening system. Financially, there would be a greater burden at the state level. We know that they have a higher administrative cost when they're providing programs. We would still need to have an intake person here to do follow-up and connect with the partners that are making reports. We have concerns about those reports that aren't screened in, what happens to them. Right now, we record every single report that we receive, so we enter every single report, even if it doesn't meet the threshold of child protection. Some of those families, though, are at risk for child protection, so we do outreach with those families to prevent from them going down that child protection track. Our stakeholders, we develop really strong relationships with reporters in the schools, community providers, our law enforcement. It would be additional burden that we still face with adult protection that they have to go through a centralized intake. They would prefer to maybe come into our office and provide that child protection report or call. They know our staff by name. They know us. We have developed relationships. So we have provided feedback that there would be more cons. If the state goes that way with centralized intake, we will, of course, make the most of it, and we've learned some lessons through adult protection, so hopefully we can get ahead of it.
They given a timeline for when they think they're going to try to do that?
I believe that June, the group, the contracted group that is providing the analysis across the state, will be bringing it to the state with a recommendation.
Okay.
I would not expect then that it would be rolled out until 2026, if not even 2027. For adult protection, once that decision was made, it was about a 2-year rollout before it actually hit the counties.
Yeah.
So, and another big difference is adult protection, child protection has been around a lot longer. The laws, the statutes, the rules, the practice is decades ahead of where adult protection. When the state brought out the adult protection, there was a lot of counties that were really still in the beginning stages of adult protection. Crow Wing County was actually one of the leaders in adult protection across the state. We had a very strong relationship with the sheriff's department and had been, APS was very much on our radar. And we had consistency in our screening decisions and our response to adult protection.
You know, Cara, in here you noted that Crow Wing County enters everything into that database that you're talking about. And not every county does that. Is there a movement from the state to require that of every county, or to not require it and don't want people to do it, so that their data is, is consistent across the board? Do you know if there's such a movement?
You know, I think that would be a solid suggestion that would come out of this work group, is that for the state to provide very clear guidelines across the county and expectations on the entering of intakes or reports. Because there isn't consistency and the state hasn't provided direction. It really is up to those at the local level on if they're gonna enter every single report, how those reports are entered. But it would be helpful and important that we all were doing it the same way.
It would seem like if you enter it all, then there's certain data that's available to understand what's going on in our society. If you don't, if you exclude one portion of it, I don't think your data or your analysis can be complete and fully see what's going on with our society. So just a thought I had when I read your report last night.
Yes, we have found it helpful in just locally to be able to look and have a full snapshot of a family, and sometimes just that single report in and itself doesn't paint that full picture, and then you start putting the reports together, and then the puzzle becomes whole and it's evident. So then you think of families that move across counties and have history in those other counties, and for us to be able to see those reports and know what was in those intakes and reports, it really would benefit us and the families to have that full picture. In the intake and assessment team, that team is supervised by Margaret Wisco. Of interest is that 75% of those social workers, so when you look at that org chart, 75% of those social workers have 3 years or less of child protection experience. So we did experience a high rate that was unfamiliar to us of turnover over the last 3 years. And because of that, and because of the training and the onboarding that is required with child protection workers, we did have to really focus on onboarding, which meant that there was a decrease in the number of our child welfare and our PSOP cases. That's still really important to us. We know that investing in cases earlier on and preventing those families from entering the child protection system is, first of all, it's just better for the families, less trauma, as well as it does assist in us managing our out-of-home placement budget and our staffing resources and our judicial system, parent attorney time, county attorney time, guardian ad litem, the whole system. So we did have to rein it in somewhat in 2023 and focus in 2024 and really focus more on child protection. So we're building our numbers back up again, though, in the prevention and preservation, and we'll get back there where we were at in 2022. So that moves us into the ongoing team, which is supervised by Stacy Brown. And even though we had to shift some of those resources, our out-of-home placement budget and numbers continue to sit very well, actually record low. Right now we have 65 kids in care. That's that point in time report that we look at every month. We have 65 kids in care. Back in November of 2017, we topped out at 195. So to think 7-8 years later, and we're at 65 is pretty remarkable, unbelievable when when I say it out loud. And then we need to knock on wood. So the actual out-of-home placement budget last year in 2024, we were approximately 1 million under budget. So even though the numbers are going down, the actual number of kids in care, our rates have also increased though. So the amount of the rates that we pay foster parents goes up every July, and those have increased over the years, as well as just the rates for detention, residential, our group homes have been going up substantially since COVID, and that's mainly due to staffing. They need to compete with each other, and they need to have quality staff and adequate staff to meet the needs of the kids in their care. We're projected to continue to be, if the last 18 months, we use a rolling 18-month average, and if we continue to trend where we're at based on the first quarter, and we're early into 2025, we still should come about 1 million under budget. And our out-of-home placement budget is set at, for 2025, is at 2.8 million currently.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Yeah, Cara, so if you're 1 million under budget, so then I'm assuming that for the 26 budget, you'll readjust that number, because I think the county board wants all departments to be very close to a projection. I mean, that would get troubling after a while if we keep putting a high number and then it comes in $1 million below.
Correct,
Does that make sense?
Yes, correct, Commissioner Coring, that we've used the 18-month average to project out. We have continually been under, and the last 2 or 3 years, and we've had some high-cost kids that we expected. There's one in particular that's actually in a placement right now that it's $4,000 a day. Luckily, he's in a waiver home, so the waiver is helping us to cover that $4,000 a day, and it only takes 1 or 2 kids, such as that youth, to get us to that $1 million, where we would have been right at budget.
How can that be? How can anybody be $4,000 a day? Can you explain that? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, he's an anomaly. This is the youth that we've had in care for approximately 5 years, was a disrupted international adoption, was adopted from another county. In the home that he's in right now, he requires 2 staff at all time and a wake. So that's a high personnel cost. He cannot be with anybody else. He's in a home by himself. And there's a 2-to-1 staffing ratio, and those staff do have to be specially trained in management of his behaviors and escalation.
Cara, if I can just interrupt too, I would suspect that there's a psychiatrist involved and a psychologist and maybe some behavior analysts that might be involved in that. And when you think about Commissioner Coring, a psychiatrist, you're paying them probably $300,000 a year to do their job, but every one of those professionals that support this young man are costly items in addition to the hourly staff that are providing the 24-hour observation and care of him. So it isn't hard to get to that $4,000 a day.
Well said. He is an anomaly. Kids that are in detention, those daily rates are around 600. Residential is 300 to the 600, and then our foster care, so kids that the least restrictive that are in family foster homes, are $35 to $80 a day.
And Cara, you said that he was from another county. I think you meant to say he was from another country.
Oh,
correct?
I apologize. Yes, correct. He would be from another country. It was an international.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, and just one other thing to add to Commissioner Coring's point about reducing the budget if we're trending at $1 million below budget every year. We continue to monitor and review that on a We're looking at it basically on a monthly basis, we're looking at it on an annual basis, and we have adjusted the budget down in this area over the past couple of years. In fact, the last 2 years, we had taken it from 2019 of having a budget of 4.6 million down to the 2 million, just over $2 million that we have for this year. So we are reducing that amount. We also know that this is an area where, as Cara mentioned, we have to keep an eye on it because one case can end up throwing us out of whack. And that was one of the areas that we had some concerns about, if you recall, where we were trending $1 million over budget every year for a while. So it's finding that balance and that happy medium, which is why the analysis that's currently being done, as well as the prevention work versus the reactive work that is involved in this area. Some of these things and initiatives that you have approved as the board and that Cara and her team have implemented are having really good positive impacts on out-of-home placement. Not only the number of kids who are in out-of-home placement, but the budgetary numbers as well. So it is something that we're constantly monitoring through that process.
So, Mr. Chair, I have another question. So I don't know if you can tell the age of this person, but what does it look like for the citizens of Crow Wing County if it's $4,000? How long will that go on? And when that person turns 18, what happens then? I mean, I think if I tried to explain this to people, my constituents, $4,000 a day, they'd like, holy smokes. So what happens when that person turns 18?
Yes, this youth will turn 18 during the summer months, and at that point, he can choose to remain in care, continue to work with us. There are requirements for that, such as remaining chemical-free. He needs to be working or working towards an education, so whether that's GED or going to tech school or college, and comply with all other case plan requirements. For this individual, that would be being compliant with his medications, seeking therapy, complying with the rules of the house. As of right now, this youth has said that he does not want to continue to work with us, and that when he turns 18, he will be on his own. He will be independent and on his own. We will do our best to set him up with services in the community wherever he decides to relocate, and be there for him if he wants case management services, like adult mental health case management services, to help him with seeking services and being a successful adult in the community.
So once he turns 18, he is not under any commitment or anything. Once he turns 18, he legally can make the decisions himself. And
You
there's
are.
nothing, am I right?
You are correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And thank you, Debbie, for giving a really nice summary. I do want to, while the team has, been very invested early on in this journey of prioritizing family preservation and prevention, our child protection numbers were still really high. So the team, though, was all in, the staff, the supervisors, as well as county attorney's office, the judges, guardian ad litems, the parent attorneys, knowing that the agency was needing to be shifting resources and balancing between child protection and child welfare, and that prevention and preservation. And then most importantly was the support that we had from all of you. So the commissioners, you did support us early on with hiring additional social workers. At that time, we called them program specialists to work in that prevention area. Those program specialists have been reclassified when we got that new allocation, and we were not able to supplant, and I think it's Commissioner Coring who is interested. He's always amazed by that word or surprised by that word. We weren't able to supplant what we were currently doing, so we were creative, and what we did was reclassified those program specialists to social workers because they already had degrees, and that gave us, though, now flexibility that those workers, when our child protection numbers go high, we can shift them, and they can jump in and do an assessment or an investigation, or maybe keep a case that we have ongoing child protection. And then when the numbers go down, because it changes on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, and when the numbers go down, then they can shift and pivot and go back to doing more of that family preservation and prevention work. So just a lot of gratitude for the entire system in supporting us through this journey over the last 8 years.
Mr. Chair, Kara, can I ask you a question? Child protection is a mandated service.
Correct.
Is family preservation a mandated service?
Family preservation, child welfare, the PSOP is not a mandated service.
So I just wanted to point out for all of you that while we're required or mandated to provide child protection, the stuff that we are doing that's not, quote, mandated is what is having the impacts that Kara's been talking about. That is the piece that is bringing down the number of kids that are actually placed in care to begin with, because we're doing these family preservation services on the front end. This is what's helping with some of the reduction in costs, is because we are doing more programs on a preventative side that aren't necessarily, quote, mandated services, but are having the more impact on preventing us from having to have the high costs associated with providing those mandated requirements. I just wanted to call that out specifically as we start talking about all of these things when we start facing our budget challenges for 2026. Yes, there are levels of mandates, and there are some things that are not mandated that we choose to do, but part of the reason why we're choosing to do the non-mandated services is the direct impact that it's having on the families, on the kids, and on the budgets that we are dealing with.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
So another question, I gotta try to figure out how to choose my words carefully on this, because I'm starting to recall that we had a conversation that, and I'm not gonna mention any names, but there's some nonprofits that help to facilitate adoptions, and really in a way, they kind of, sometimes they can be really high risk children. And then they get here and the adoptive parents can't handle, or those children are just so hard to handle, that then the county now and the taxpayers take over that, of taking care of that child that comes from another country. And if I remember correctly, we were going to have a chat with these nonprofits that are facilitating this. Did we ever do that? Do you remember that?
Commissioner Coring, you are right, great memory. We did have an influx of kids, that international adoptions that were at risk for disrupting or had disrupted and were under our care and custody, whether as a formal guardianship or just in our care with being placed out of the home. I am not able, so I provide clinical supervision for the CMH team, so I have a good handle on those 100 and some cases that we have. I'm not aware right now, other than this youth that is placed in out of home, that a kid that's on our radar fitting the circumstances that you described. And I had done outreach. Krista Jones, who's the manager of corrections, had also done some outreach with the organization that was facilitating or was part of that group, requesting to come and speak to their members and explain what we were facing here in Crow Wing County. We didn't get the opportunity to attend one of their meetings or one of their groups when they got together. However, maybe just having those conversations and giving them a little awareness to what we were facing, and maybe the families themselves so I'm not sure if they're still in that business of helping to facilitate international adoptions. And County Administrator Tim Houle was part of that outreach as well. So phone calls, letters to ask to come and have conversations with them. So I have a tracking sheet of those kids, and we'll continue to monitor that situation.
Well, I appreciate that answer. I just hope that if something like this happens in the future, I certainly have no problem making the community aware of these organizations that are providing these services that are really costing the taxpayers a lot of money, and it's putting families in a very difficult position. When we had the conversation before, there was one child that they were scared of. And so, anyway, I'll leave it at that, but I just want those groups to be on notice. Thank you.
And to add to that, you know, it's wonderful that families are willing to open their homes and their hearts to kids that need a placement, maybe short-term respite or long-term. So when you're having those conversations as a commissioner, let them know, you know, Crow Wing County is always looking for foster homes, whether as a respite provider, which you do not have to be fully licensed, or as a shelter, and permanency option, which then would require you to go through the license option. But I always tell people a good place to start is with just respite, because that's a background check and us coming and visiting the home and make sure that it's safe for kids to be in. I know that I'm over. I have one more to point out, Chair. If that's...
Go ahead.
Okay. Under the CMH team that's supervised by Pat Charbonda, as you recall, it would have been now 7-8 years ago, we received a $500,000 Systems of Care, SAMHSA grant, to implement SIBS and SFT, so Collaborative Intensive Bridging Service, Systemic Family Therapy. We worked with community partners to provide the systemic family therapy. We went from having 8 kids placed in residential, many of those out of state, with a waiting list. Since that implementation of the SIBS and the SFT, we have not placed a youth out of state. We had great successes with that. So those were kids. We target families, and we continue to target families that are at risk for residential or in need of residential placement. What we did experience, though, was a high turnover in our community providers providing that therapy. It's really intense. It's in the home. It's not as ideal if you're a mental health professional as being outpatient. It's a little bit more gritty work, so there was a high turnover. Because of that, we did train somebody internally that is an LICSW that works under me, has been trained in the model, and half of her time, we have her doing systemic family therapy with families that continue to be at risk for residential.
LICSW?
Yes, licensed independent clinical social worker.
Okay.
We like our initials. And we also shifted resources so that we have depth in our crossover work. Crossover, a number of years ago, the county board supported us with hiring an additional social worker to target those youth that were engaged in criminal activity, often ending up sitting in detention at a daily rate of $400 or $500. That adds up really quick. So we have a social worker that is deployed immediately. So prior to them going on probation, we deploy that social worker to get that kid out of detention. Maybe it's safety planning and having that kid go back home with services in the home. It might be going to a foster home. It might be going to residential treatment, chemical dependency treatment. And because of the detention numbers going up, we shifted and have another staff that is working in the capacity of crossover. And that is all I have.
So, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
So by doing these intensive in-home, we're keeping kids from out-of-home placement. Is that what you're saying? So we're investing money into that. Otherwise, we would be caught on the other side of it, the $400 or $500 a day for out-of-home placement. So it is working.
Correct.
Good.
Yes,
Thank you.
investing in the systemic family therapy intensive in-home versus a kid going into residential at the $300 to $600 a day now.
Thank you.
I'm amazed every time you come and present with the complexity of what takes place under your purview. And it's appreciative from my perspective of all the work that you do to shift here, shift there, try to get ahead of these issues. Again, to the administrator's point, some of these aren't mandates, but they are getting ahead of it, and in the long haul, they're saving some money, even though we don't have to do it. But so there's a cost, no matter how you look at it. It's just how much do you want to pay? And I appreciate the efforts that you have, that your staff have in adjusting, their workloads and what they're assigned to do, because I think that's sometimes problematic, is that change is tough for some people. But I think that, I just want to acknowledge that they seem to be a group that, by and large, is buying into the adjustments to make sure that Crow Wing County is being as efficient as we can with the resources we have. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that comment.
There's nothing else? Appreciate the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, do you want to join up here also? We like good-looking men in our room here.
Nice job.
All right, good morning. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Steve Hall. I'm the Deputy Commanding Officer for Camp Ripley. You can kind of consider me the resort manager. And then to my left is Major Michael Popp. He's our Operations Officer. Kind of consider him the Activities Director. So we kind of think of Camp Ripley as a resort. And when you put it into those terms, it makes a lot of sense to us, and I think it does to you guys as well. So appreciate the opportunity to be with you this morning and to give you an update on Camp Ripley and kind of what the summer looks like. At any time, please don't hesitate to ask me any questions. All right, our mission. So underlined, positive community relations. And that's really why we're out here today. Without our positive community relations, we can't do what we need to do, and we can't train the way we want to train at Camp Ripley. It's the support we get from our communities that make this possible. As you guys know, we are in Lakes Country. And the last thing we really need is like quiet hours at night. There's a lot of installations that have received a little bit more urban encroachment. And with that, the voice of the public has stopped those bases and installations from being allowed to train the way they need to train for combat operations. So if you've been around this weekend, you know we were in full force already. It will continue throughout the summer, but the support we get from you is crucial to our success as well. So thank you for that, and that's why we're out here. Minnesota leadership. So Major General Sean Mankey, 2-star general. He is the highest ranking general in Minnesota. We all work for him basically. And then his senior enlisted advisor is Command Chief Master Sergeant Lisa Erickson. So interesting fact, she is Air Force. So a lot of people, when they hear Minnesota National Guard, they think Army. But what you need to realize is that the Minnesota National Guard is made up of Army and Air Force. So the Army makes up a little over 11,000, and the Air Force contributes a little over 2,000. So we have about 13,000 guardsmen in Minnesota. The Air Force is stationed out of the 148th Fighter Wing, the F-16s out of Duluth, and then the 133rd Air Wing that is on the Minneapolis Airport, which you probably see when you fly in and out with the C-130. So kind of a fun fact. So she's Air Force. It's kind of, it's just very interesting for us to work with her because you'd think that since we're all in the military, we speak the same language, but it's a lot like Norwegian and Swedish. It's very close. But it's interesting some of the terms that we use. So she's been great to work with, and she sees things through a different light that the Army doesn't always see. So it's been really good and enlightening to have her on the staff as well. One other interesting fact with Minnesota is that we are home of the Red Bulls. So the Red Bull division, there's 8 National Guard divisions, and Minnesota is home to one of them. So with that, we also receive another 2-star command, and that is Major General Charles Kemper. He will actually be rotating out next month, and General Joe Sharkey will be taking his place, but they just recently returned from a deployment, if you saw that on the news, so we're very happy to have our headquarters back. And then his Command Sergeant Major, his senior enlisted advisor, is Matthew Erickson. Great fact for him, he used to be a Command Sergeant Major for Camp Ripley, so he's very familiar with us, and it's great to have him up at the division level with us. Camp Ripley leadership. So Colonel Troy Fink, he is the garrison commander, so he owns the resort for the most part. And his Command Sergeant Major is Ryan Hofstad. So Colonel Troy Fink is great. He lives between Baxter and Pillager, so he's familiar with the area. So it's great to have him come in as the commander. And the Command Sergeant Major Ryan Hofstad lives in the Royalton area. So we are lucky to have people that understand the climate around Camp Ripley. Economic impact. So just shy of $83 million is our economic impact for this past year. We strive to keep that money as local as possible. We are the largest employer of Morrison County. We have 800 employees full-time on Camp Ripley, and in the summertime, we surge to right around 1,000 employees. But a lot of our economic impact, we hope, stays within the community of that surrounds Camp Ripley.
Is that 83 million, is that year over year, is that pretty consistent?
That's pretty consistent, sir. Yeah, we're right around that 80 to 85 million. A lot of that is construction dollars. Obviously, our salary makes up quite a bit of that, or our payroll. But yeah, that's very consistent.
Okay.
Located again in the center of Minnesota, 18 miles of underserved Mississippi River. We always say we're the largest private landowner of the Mississippi River. And then surrounded by 3 counties. So just shy of 53,000 acres is what Camp Ripley is made up of. Some of our accomplishments. So 558,000 Department of Defense. So 558,000 military came through our gates this past year at Camp Ripley. And then another 71,000 and some change civilian training as well as Camp Ripley. So if you didn't know, all the state troopers from Minnesota and your conservation officers the academies are all held at Camp Ripley as well. And we are completely 100% state owned, which means that we're a good place for any state entity to come and train at. So we get a lot of local and state agency partners for that. The second bullet there is kind of a feather in our cap for the most part. We were the 3rd busiest National Guard training center in the nation.
In the nation.
In the nation. So you really got to consider that because of our northern climate. So the other 2 installations are in the southern states, and they can train all year round. Our winter is a good thing and a bad thing for us, but for us to be the 3rd busiest and be this far north is really a feather in our cap to the Midwest and to our Minnesota mentality. Our staff here and our team we don't say no mentality. We will get to yes somehow. And not every installation is like that, but we have strived and we work hard on that, and it's starting to pay off. So I've challenged the staff to get to number 2, which will be a little bit hard, but it was a really big accomplishment for us to be the 3rd busiest. The 3rd bullet, so multiple training events with our active duty partners. So combat has changed quite a bit throughout the past year or two, and we're changing our mentality. We used to focus on what's called counterinsurgency operations. So imagine kind of the end of Vietnam and then Desert Storm, Iraq and Afghanistan, and how we trained and how we fought. You couldn't see the enemy very well, right? They didn't really wear a uniform, things of that nature. We're getting back to what's called large-scale combat operations. So think more of World War I, World War II type. And that's what we believe our next conflict is going to be. It's going to be with a like-type foe. So we are changing our mentality and going back to what was old is new again, and that's how we're changing our ranks. With that, we're out of the desert, and we're focusing back into combat in any climate, right? So the active duty has really picked up on this, and they've noticed that Camp Ripley, with our northern climate and our cold, is a great place for winter survival. It's really fun for us at Camp Ripley to hear a group from South Carolina coming up and seeing their training plan, and we're going to land, we're going to do this, and this. I'm like, yeah, it works great in 70 degrees, but it's going to be -10 when you get here, and none of your stuff's going to work. Your vehicles are going to be gelled up, things of that nature. So it's been really good training for units that are not used to being in the cold. And we continue to work on that, and we want to be home to winter warfare training in the future and really embrace our climate to the north here and get that. So they're coming, and we continue to grow with more training every winter, which is good for us. And then, as I talked about, the DNR State Patrol Academies, and then the 52nd anniversary of Norwegian Exchange. So it's the longest international exchange with a foreign country. So we've been with Norway now, again, for 52 years. We send over around 100 troops. They send 100 troops to us. Over there, they focus on winter warfare training. In the U.S., when they come visit with us, we focus more on platoon and squad level training. They're not very used to that. And then our Combat Lifesaver program as well. We've changed our focus. We used to do a little bit more domestic operations with them. We had local law enforcement. I think Crow Wing County participated in that a few years ago. But Norway wants to get back to more of that tactical and less of the domestic operations. We've kind of changed our training throughout the years.
Quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
So you talk about changing how you're looking at the next battle that'll take place. How are you incorporating urban warfare into that?
So the urban warfare piece of that, we have a city on Camp Ripley that we train in. It's 26 buildings.
So it's not Little Falls?
Not Little Falls, no, on Camp Ripley. Downrange, we have a 26 building. It's got a government building, it's got a school, it's got houses, it's got a jail. You can actually it's got a tunnel system underneath it. So that's a focus as well as that urban training piece.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yep. Support to civil authorities. So we get asked a question every once in a while, like, how do we activate the National Guard? So if there was a flood, tornado, any kind of a natural disaster, how do you activate the National Guard? Step one, the natural disaster happened. Step two, you need to call your county sheriff. Your county sheriff is the only one who can put the request in for support to the National Guard. It goes through Homeland Security and Emergency Management, and then the governor will approve the activation of the National Guard. We get asked that question quite a bit, and we get phone calls at Ripley like, hey, can we get some National Guardsmen to help us out? We had some storm damage in Randall or whatever it might be. We're like, well, work through Morrison County Sheriff or Crow Wing or Cass County to activate us if that's the case. And sometimes we get activated, and sometimes we don't get activated. But just kind of an interesting fact there. Construction updates. So access control points. So if you've been to Camp Ripley and you've gone through the historic main gates of Camp Ripley, in a few years you will not go through those gates anymore. Believe it or not, they do not make the force protection anti-terrorism law or rules that follow. So we are building a new access control point to Camp Ripley. The main gate will be closed and it'll be open for ceremonial purposes only. The new gate will be to the west of the current gate, and it'll be more of like a serpentine, so you can't gain speed. It'll meet all the requirements that we need for anti-terrorism force protection. So that's in the early stages right now. Funding has been secured for that. They're working on the design, and we're hoping to put a shovel in the ground either late 26 or early 27 for that project. And it'll take about 2 years to get that built. So that's a big project for us at Camp Ripley, and kind of a change to habit to a lot of us that have gone through the gates. I've worked at Ripley for 15 years now. I've gone through those main gates for 15 years, so it's going to be a change for all of us. Area 5, so if you've been on Camp Ripley, we used to have a bunch of tin huts and some really old buildings. We're trying to increase the quality of life for our soldiers that train at Camp Ripley in their bedding. You can imagine retention is hard for everyone. It's hard for us, so that if we can make life a little easier for the soldier and make sure that they're well rested when they go down to train, that's a big thing. So we're continuing to work in Area 5. We have a pistol range down the range. The qualification tables have changed, therefore we needed to add some targetry and things of that nature. And then our T buildings, which are our big open bay barracks that everyone sleeps in, they were built in the late 70s, early 80s, and have never been touched. So we need to go inside, we need to start renovating those as well. So it's a project we'll be working on in the future as well. Again, creating a better quality of life for our soldiers. I should say our military. Museum update. So if you've been on 371, you probably drove one day and there was nothing on the ground. You drove the next day and the walls were up. So the precast walls went up very quickly, and we're very excited to have the museum coming. We're thinking summer of 26 that they should be opening their doors. They are really aggressively working on that. It's really interesting to see. And for us at Camp Ripley, that gets the museum off of Camp Ripley and puts it onto a public land. So they tend to have a lot of people that are intimidated by coming through the front gates of Ripley, so they won't see the museum because they don't quite understand what the rules are, things of that nature. So that should help them out a little bit. And this is not the Camp Ripley Museum. This is the Minnesota Military Museum. So we kind of get that phrase where everyone's like, let's go see the Camp Ripley Museum. It's actually the state of Minnesota's military museum. And the same thing with the cemetery. It's not a Camp Ripley cemetery, it's a state cemetery. So we're excited to have this open up, and it's really coming along well. So I encourage you to Google this. There's a neat video you can watch. It's a couple minutes long, and it kind of gives you a virtual tour of what the building's going to look like.
So has always the museum inside the camp has always been the Minnesota Military Museum?
It has, yep.
It has, even though when I bring my kids down there, I thought it was your museum. You know?
Nope, it's the Minnesota Museum, just stationed inside of Camp Ripley. So.
That's the only one in Minnesota.
Yes, there's a littler one, I think, down by the 133rd Air Wing. There's a smaller museum, but this is the main museum for the state of Minnesota.
Good.
Yep. Scheduled training. So March we had the LSSR, the Scottish Regiment, out of Thunder Bay, Canada. So we get a lot of Canadians that come visit us and train with us. We joke with them that they owe us 25% more now, but they take it with a heart. They've been working with us quite a bit. We're actually a closer training area for them to come and visit. So they're great to have as a partner. In April, which we're coming to an end in, we've got a little bit of aerial gunnery. So if you saw some helicopters flying this weekend, they were actually doing some door gunnery. So they were shooting their machine guns and stuff out of the helicopter doors into Camp Ripley. And then you also probably heard some artillery. So we are getting into artillery season. We do our best to put that onto social media and then on the local radio stations as well to let you know. It will get quieter to a degree. Right now, there's still some frost in the ground. which really makes that sound rip across. Also, no leaves on the trees and things of that nature doesn't help deaden the sound. And then if you have a low cloud cover day, so if it's cloudy, you're going to hear it a lot more than you will if it's a nice bright sunny day. So just consider those. But we do our best to let you know that we are doing that kind of training. So and that'll continue all the way through May and into June. And then July, a little bit more aviation flying around as well. And then we have our youth camp programs into July and August. And that's a great program for military youth. It's kind of like that old school 1950s, 60s youth camp that you think of sending your youth. And it's a very economical way to send your kids to a 2-week school. They get to visit with other students that have parents in the military, and they kind of share the struggles and stuff that they're dealing with. So that's been a really great program that we've had for numerous years. And then some modernization that we're having with our armor. So our tanks and our Bradleys, we're getting brand new tanks and Bradleys. It's called the Army of 2030 concept. So we're updating our equipment a little bit. Again, going back to that large-scale combat operations, we need to be able to compete and defend ourselves against a like-type foe. So we're updating our equipment kind of at a massive rate right now. And so we'll get new equipment, and everyone needs to come in and get trained on it. And then snowplow training will come in as well. So every MnDOT snowplow driver in Minnesota has to come to Camp Ripley every year and get certified that they can drive that snowplow to a standard. So they come and train as well. It's just a big sea of orange at Camp Ripley for a couple weeks. State partners, I think I hit most of these. The DNR, of course, is on Ripley. State Patrol, Homeland Security, Emergency Management does a lot of training at Camp Ripley, and so does the Department of Transportation. And we recently had the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension just leave Camp Ripley. They did quite a bit of training at Ripley as well. This is an important slide. If you take away anything, please keep these numbers handy. So the military is constantly deploying, and it doesn't matter if they're in the National Guard or if they're active duty or whatever they're doing. There are a lot of people in your county right now that are deployed, and their families are struggling. You won't know it because they're proud, and they won't always ask for help. But if you do notice that, these 3 names here can take care of them. They'll help them out, and they'll support them in any way they possibly can. So I encourage you that if you know of anyone, or if you hear of anyone in your districts that are struggling, to please pass these names along, and these people are more than willing to help them and support them. Even if they're not deployed, and they're in the military and they're just struggling through life, they got into some bankruptcy or some financial difficulty or whatever it might be, these people are here to help. So please, we encourage you guys to give these names out and keep them handy. Some community outreach that we're doing. So if you've never been to Camp Ripley, I encourage you to mark your calendars for September 14th of 2025. It's a Sunday. We open the doors to the chocolate factory. So you come on in, we'll put all of our new equipment on display. You can see your kids and your children or grandchildren, whatever it might be, can come and crawl all over our equipment. We'll have subject matter experts with every weapon, every tank, every Bradley. We'll have a Chinook, a double rotor helicopter, a Blackhawk, and a C-130 on the ground. You can crawl and walk around them and do all that. And you can come inside Camp Ripley and see it for the day. So we do it every 2 years. And like I said, it is not the same weekend as the craft fair. In Little Falls, we always make sure that we do not hit the craft fair weekend. So it's the opposite weekend of that. But yeah, please, I encourage you to come down. It's from 10 o'clock in the morning until about 2 in the afternoon. So come down. We'll have a lot of vendors, and it's a really good day. Some other things we do a lot of tours with local schools, especially this time of year. Teachers are getting tired and like, let's go on a field trip to Camp Ripley. So we get a lot of those speeches, things of that nature, food drives, Christmas gift tags. So we take 100 gift tags from Morrison County, and we give those gifts back to children that probably wouldn't have gotten a Christmas present. So that's a really good, feel-good thing that we do every year at Ripley. And then we are the largest blood donors in Morrison County. So just shy of 5,000 pints of blood a year is what we give. So we kind of give back in that respect because we completely understand, especially us, the importance of blood. So, and then some hunts for disabled veterans and some fishing opportunities. Environmental programs. So you can imagine when a 70-plus ton tank is on the ground, they're doing a little bit of destruction to the environment and things of that nature. We try to be good stewards, but we also need to train. But our environmental program is top-notch. They constantly get awarded year after year after year, and it's kind of getting boring, like, you guys won again. It's kind of like when somebody wins the Super Bowl 5 years in a row, but we still want them to win because they're our team. So we have a great environmental program. They do quite a bit of work for us in restoring the ground back to the way it used to look like and restoring it back to its natural habitat as well. So we've got a great program with them, and they work with a lot of different partners. And we have some wolf studies That bird you see up there, that is a golden eagle. So we just saw golden eagles for the first time. It's probably been 8 years now, and we're kind of like, what is that big bird? They're about twice the size of a bald eagle. And so you can imagine when you see that thing in flight, you're like, what is this thing? Well, kind of interesting. They're from the Arctic Circle, and they come down and they winter at Minnesota. So this is their warm area to come winter, is to come down to Minnesota. So we were able to put a little backpack tracker on their back, capture one, and monitor its movement. So that's been interesting for us. And then, like I said, the bear studies that we do, and then wolf studies and things of that nature, as well as deer. Partnerships. So with being 53,000 acres of natural habitat, we have a great relationship with the local schools. So anyone that's going for an environmental program or biology program can do a lot of internships at Camp Ripley. We strongly encourage that. It's the best classroom you could have. I was a biology teacher in a past life, so I wish I would have had the opportunity to do my environmental degree and my biology degree at Camp Ripley. That would have been great. So I get a little jealous when I see those groups that get to do that. And we get some free labor out of the deal a little bit, but we try to make it enriching for those students. So we've got good programs, Central Lakes and St. Cloud, as well as U.S. Fish and Wildlife. Prescribed burns. So let's talk about that for a sec. We are burning. Sometimes we're burning because we want to burn, and sometimes we just burn. We do our best. We're burning a little over 14,000 acres on Camp Ripley a year. Our motto kind of is we would rather light it than fight it. So we try to get ahead of it. But as you guys know, you could have snow on the ground one day, and 2 days later, we're dry and we're burning, and you're in a red flag status. And we've had a few more cases this year than usual with that, but we've been able to contain them and control them. So you might see smoke from Camp Ripley. If you do, please go on to social media or listen to the radio and say, yep, it's planned. We're tracking the burn. In fact, we're burning right now some more ground at Camp Ripley, because if we don't do it, a couple of things, right? It could encroach or leave Camp Ripley's borders, which is never a good thing. And the other thing is it stops training. So when there's a fire on one of our shooting ranges, things of that nature, we have to stop the training and put that fire out. It damages our targetry, things of that nature. And then again, those soldiers might not get the training and qualifications that they need because they're on a tight schedule as well. So we are in burning season right now. Army Compatible Use Buffer Program. So this is an Army program. This is where a base, they kind of work with us. And again, I talked earlier in this presentation about urban encroachment. What this program does is works with willing landowners to put their land into an easement with Army. And basically, they go into an agreement. They get, I think it's about half the value of what their land is. And with that, they come back and say, we promise that we will never develop our land. They can still have cattle, farm, things of that nature, because we always say corn and trees don't complain, right? And those are good neighbors for us. So with this program, and we've got a lot of people on a waiting list. It's all funding based, of course. But it's been a really good program for us and has kept the encroachment around Camp Ripley to a minimum. So, unexploded ordnance. So this is your safety slide. So with this, as you guys are cleaning out some of your relatives' houses or things of that nature, if they served in the war, they probably brought something home they shouldn't have brought home. And with that, please call us. We will dispose of it. Do not, like I can't emphasize, do not put this in your vehicle and bring it through the front gates of Camp Ripley. I can't tell you how many times we've had this happen, and we just stop them like, please, just stop moving. Let's take care of it. So, but with that, if you do see something, or if you know of anything that you might see in either a house, or if you're unsure of what it is, just give us a phone call, or call 911, and the sheriff's department will get a hold of us as well, and we'll remove that ordinance from you. And with that concludes my brief. I'm open to any questions you might have.
Sure, I have one if you don't mind, Mr. Chair. So how are you going to get up to be number 2? What is your marketing plan to get your camp up to being number 2 as far as being in the United States instead of number 3?
So to get from number 3 to number 2, there's quite a bit to that, right? So we kind of have to roll out what's called the red carpet to some of these units, right? And it's really customer service. It's based 100% on our customer service. You know, everyone that comes to Camp Ripley is like, we've never had anybody like this before. You go to other installations and say you had a shooting range scheduled until 5 o'clock, but life got a vote, right? And your soldiers still they didn't get through their qualification or their training. You'd be surprised how many installations would say, it's 5 o'clock, you're done. You're done training, get off the range. We're done for the day. That does not happen at Camp Ripley. And if it did, I'd get a phone call. And it would not go well for our team, right? So we'll stay out there. We will stay out there until we need to anymore. We cater to changing training schedules, things of that nature. We provide good quality training, and we keep our ranges good. Everything is meticulous out there. You look at some of our rifle ranges, you swear on a golf course. Our employees take a lot of pride in, and that's, if you ask me what the most important thing on is Camp Ripley, it's the employees. That's our number one. The most important thing on Camp Ripley is the employees of Ripley, and if they're happy, they'll do a good job and they'll take pride in what they do. So how do we get to number 2? It's through some advertising. We position ourselves, or we posture ourselves to be more supportive. I am now the National Training Center Chair, so I represent all training centers in the National Guard. That was kind of by design because I wanted to be number 2, and with that I got a little bit of influence, but I also help out our other National Guard bases, and that's our model there, is we'd rather send you to another National Guard base to help them out as well. But it's going to be a challenge, sir. We were 3rd place, but we've got a lot of ground to pick up from 2nd place. So 2nd place was like 800 and some thousand. Like I said, you saw us at 550,000. So we may never get there, but for a northern climate, I'm pretty proud of our team. They've done a really good job.
I only say that because, in Crow Wing County, we're Minnesota's favorite place,
Right. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Any other questions?
I want to say thank you that my windows rattle even at night when you're shooting that big artillery off, because I tell my wife that's keeping us safe, and that's the training that you provide. So thank you very much for all you do down there.
Appreciate
And I
it.
don't care how much it interrupts my sleep or my day. I applaud you folks. You're
Thank you.
a wonderful team to have around, so thank you.
Thank you, sir. And we truly appreciate the support we get from our local community. It helps us out a lot.
Yep.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Enjoy
gentlemen.
the rest of your day.
We'll see you next year.
Absolutely.
Morning, Joe.
Good morning. Morning, board members, Mr. Chair. Joe Luxick, Fleet Manager for Crow Wing County. Today I bring with me Austin Kubish, Crow Wing County Highway Shop Lead Worker. We're here before you today to discuss or inform you about a project that has come up that Austin has been working on. It's an innovative idea that he's come up with for an adapter plate to mount our front-mounted plows on our trucks, our big tandem plow trucks, to our big loader. To basically put another tool in our toolbox for us when we need that out there on the roads if we have to, or around the shop, or down here at the parking lots downtown. What this is Austin has come up with this idea. There's some local funding out there through the Minnesota Local Research Board. It's through the University of Minnesota. It's actually called an OPRA funding, which is Operational Research for Local Transportation Groups. This is just, they help to give some money out to these innovative ideas that people around our state come up with to help provide that funding to purchase these extra tools in our toolbox. And we've applied for that grant, or for that funding. And Austin has really taken the lead on this and come up with this idea, presented it to this board for this funding, and they have approved that for us. They've already discussed it through what he's submitted, and we bring him here today just to discuss it a little bit with you and fill you in on what the project is. So I'll turn it over to Austin.
Good morning.
Good morning, Austin.
So I have a lot of experience in, commercial snow removal and stuff like that. I've used different types of loaders, different types of attachments and other items for snow removal. the idea kind of came to me with our old push box that we were using on our loader starting to get towards the end of its lifespan. We've been starting to have some issues with it about why not, look at having some sort of a plow that we could use for both the parking lot and also be able to use that on our roadway system for various activities or various snow removal. So I had reached out to Falls to, see if they had something like this available that we could look at adding it into our budget to procure it that way. I was met with, we just have an adapter. You can just, mount it to your plow, and then your plow is now suited for your loader. And with that, it took away the versatility of being able to readily put it onto a truck. So we have two spare plows right now that we can interchange onto a truck if we have an issue with another plow during a snow event. With that, if we're using that for the loader and now we got to put it on a truck, now that takes valuable time that plow could be in use on our roadway, and we have to take and put that back to a truck mount. So I kind of talked with the CEO at Falls about what I was looking for. I'm sure you guys saw the photo of it. Yeah. I explained I want to be able to just act like I'm unhooking it from a truck and hook it back up to another truck. So basically what you see on the left there, that is our loader style mount. That end goes on the loader. The other style that's more on the right side there, that's what the front of our trucks look like. So that is exactly how it would go onto a truck. So we are not changing anything physically to the plow. It is an intermediate adapter to go between the loader and the plow. So this would essentially stay mounted onto our plow, and then on the off chance we need to take the plow off and put it onto a loader or put it onto a truck, we would just hook up to it with the loader, unhook it, hook up to our truck and go. So with that, I brought it to our ERPC committee. We had discussed it, and being that this was a piece of equipment that was not in production yet, I was mentioned to bring it to apply for the opera funding for it. So I submitted the application for the opera funding. I believe it was a couple days. Yeah. And we had heard back that they had approved the funding request for that. And then all we have to do is procure it. We have to take some photos of it, do some paperwork on the back end of it for the committee so that way they can kind of see their side of things and bring it forward to the LTAP committee.
So a question.
Go for it.
So you have an invoice that shows up for Falls for $5,700.
Yes, sir.
And is that the cost of them producing
Yep.
a couple of these items for you?
Yep.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Or each item, I guess it is. So, and then further down, it talks about the University of Minnesota, and you're talking $600,000 in that, which must be the opera budget that they have?
I believe so, yes.
So that has nothing to do with what, Austin, you're trying to achieve?
No.
Or,
No.
okay. I have to say a couple things here. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You talked about the time and the safety factors that it would save. I'm worried about the time, and I'm going to tell you why. Because when I read through this, you have to go present somewhere about the magnificent piece of equipment that you've produced. So you're not saving Crow Wing County any time because you're going to be gone from the work site to present to these organizations about this great piece of equipment, correct?
So
I'm being facetious. You don't have to answer this. I congratulate you on looking at it and trying to figure out a way, because you also mentioned if you need to bring that plow into the shop and it's just a quick hookup and you bring it in, much easier than what you have to do currently.
Yes.
So I think there is some validity in the time savings, but also the safety aspect of it. And I think that this is an example of kind of the creativity and what we look for in our staff, and you certainly have stepped up, and you not only, you contacted a manufacturer, you went through the opera process, so I don't know what negative thing we can say, but I'm trying to think of something, so that,
Can I help you?
sure, go ahead.
No, you
But I
finish it.
congratulate you. I think this is a great opportunity.
One of the things I looked at, Austin, is this kind of like what I would think of a quick attach on a Bobcat,
Yes,
type thing?
essentially,
And this
yep.
is that piece that allows you to go from one item to another. In the loader that you're gonna be using this on, does that loader bucket, the actual bucket on the loader come off, and then this attachment goes on, it's all kind of the same thing?
Correct.
And the loader bucket can come off and go back on just as easy as you can bring the plow and that back on, yeah?
Yep. So right now, the loader bucket it's a push button, attach
off.
and disattach, so you can take the bucket off. I would compare it more to an adapter going from like your garden tractor bucket to like a skid steer style
Okay,
bucket.
to a
So
skid
you
steer
got
plate,
two
yep.
different quick adapters there, two different quick couplers that you're just trying to merge into one.
Now, is this only designed to work on Falls brand plows at this time?
Currently, yes.
Is that all we have is Falls, pretty much plows?
Yes.
And will it work on either a one-way or a two-way plow? I mean, do we only have one-way plows on our trucks?
We are going to all two-way plow truck on all of our trucks. The trucks that we are currently in the process of phasing out as our rental trucks, or our spare trucks, sorry. We're getting rid of those over time here. So we're starting to phase out the one-way plows. With that being on the way out, that one-way plow is also a different adapter.
Yep.
A different mount on there. So when those are gone, we're still going to be able to use this for the foreseeable future.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I think this is going to, excuse me, I think this is going to go down, one second.
He's getting choked up.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking of commission myself.
Gotta love allergies. I think this is gonna go down as one of those, why didn't somebody think of this sooner? Things, so. Only question I've got is, it doesn't really show scale. It looks to me like it could be top-heavy. How will this sit on the ground by itself? Like when you're off the loader and off the plow?
Yep, yeah, it is definitely something that we could take, and, I mean, being that we have a spare plow, the spare plow is, just standing ready out in the bullpen. So when we are in an idle season, so to speak, it would still be attached to that spare plow. And then whenever we're going to use it, then we'll just uncouple it from that spare plow and then move it around to a different plow if needed.
Okay. So if the spare plow is on a truck and you need the bucket on the end loader, then what's your plan?
So that top stinger portion is stationary. So it is in a position where if we had to set it down, we could set it down on part of our asphalt somewhere out in the parking lot or something similar to that.
Cool.
Any other questions? Again, I have to say congratulations. I hope you don't go find a job as a, I forget what it is, because that's not in my world, but as a designer or whatever they call it, but stick around, okay?
Appreciate it.
Commissioners, I just want to say one last thing for Austin. Austin is for the shop, one of our top innovative people. Over the years, he's come up with a lot of great ideas on different things in the shop, different thinking, different way of doing things. He's done this since he's been with us. This is one project that has made it to the top, and as a fleet manager, it makes me very proud to have him do this and bring it to this level. So,
And I
appreciate
think-
it.
I think
Thank
you
you.
should be very proud, and so should you, Austin, so.
I appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much.
Thank you for coming up and presenting
you.
it to us.
All right, I see nothing else on the agenda. Does anyone have anything? All right, we're adjourned. Commissioner Coring, we'll see you on the 23rd.